So, welcome everybody. Welcome to From Fact to Fiction. I'm Linda Whitaker, your host. I write speculative and near future thrillers laced with science and technology. I also host this podcast, From Fact to Fiction, where we unpack the truth behind our favorite specialty thrillers. Think Tom Clancy, John le Carre, Blake Crouch. And while each of these works differ in specialty, from military to political to techno thrillers, each immerses the reader in a new but realistic world. And the best of these blend fact with fiction so well, it's hard to tell the difference. You don't know what is, what could be, and what's totally impossible. It would take an expert to know. That's why each time we meet, I'll pair up with an expert and we select a new specialty thriller. We'll not only talk about why we love the book, but unpack the truth behind the fiction. This week, we're going to do something totally different. Rather than look into the facts within one book, we're going to look across thrillers at the facts behind the portrayal of firearms. We're going to cover the common errors books and movies make and add a few best practices for writers. We'll break down some movie clips separating fact from fiction from fantastical. Our expert to help us today is Chris Scrawl. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Chris is a perfect expert to help us with this. He's a retired U.S. Special Forces sergeant. He's been advising writers on the depiction of firearms since 2007. And then, after 14 years of doing that, he was inspired to actually write a book about it. He wrote Trigger Guard, A Writer's Guide to Firearms, a whole book. And in fact, I met Chris at a writer's conference where he was advising. Now he's spread his wings and will publish his first novel, Schrodinger's Glass, in September. He lives in Lake Barrington, Illinois, with his wife, Mindy, and his puppy, Ricky the Destroyer. What a perfect name. Thank you again for being with us today, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, first, I want to ask you what inspired you to start helping writers doing this kind of quirky thing you do.
Well, it's a crazy story. Just like everything else good in my life, I backed into it. Um, I was listening to an audiobook, uh, and the author, he didn't really make a mistake, but he said one of his plot lines was around a bullet type and why he couldn't use it. And I just sent him an email. I said, "Hey, they make this thing, right?" And I sent the email off, and I looked
Da,
over at my
da,
wife.
da, da.
I looked over at my wife, and I said, "I'll never hear from that guy." Well, he two hours later, I get an email, and it's a tirade. It's a tirade about how it messes everything up for him. And then he got done with his tirade, and he said, "So maybe you can help me on my next one." And so I helped him with that one, and then the next one, and then I just started, you know, doing this.
Such a great reference manual. It's available in print and ebook, we should say. I'm lucky enough to have the print copy. And you said the ebook is just as good, if not better, because you can search through it, right?
Yes,
Awesome. Well, let's get to the facts behind the fiction then. So, as we said, firearms are present in a majority of thrillers, probably to some extent. And like a doctor watching an operating room or a lawyer reading a courtroom drama, you must get super frustrated with lazy and inaccurate depictions.
I
Okay.
will. Sometimes it will take me right out. Sometimes I won't even finish a book, and I will finish just about everything that I start, but sometimes
Yeah.
it's just so bad. And from people who just do a little basic research. I mean, there's some traps out there. There's some really bad traps for writers out there, um, in the anatomy of different firearms, but basic terminology and basic anatomy of a firearm, you should be able to get that right, even if you speak of guns in the most generic of terms, and if it's wrong, I'm
Yeah.
done.
And it's not
Because
just writers, it's not just books, it's movies as well, right?
right, and in most movies are pretty good about it, but the biggest offender in movies is the Foley artist, the guy who goes back in and puts the sound effects in.
I gotcha. Yep.
So uh, you can,
Hmm.
well, one of my deadly sins, the seven deadly sins, is when a writer says the gun clicked on empty. Well, it can, but it depends on the firearm. So a majority of writers use semi-automatic handguns, which will not click on empty because of the mechanics of the gun itself. But you're watching a movie and click, click, click,
Click.
click, click.
Click. It always there. It's always the click,
It's
click, right?
and that mistake propagates into our fiction
Hmm.
because I saw this really gritty movie that was fantastic in every way, and the gun clicks on empty, so it must be a thing. That's what I'm going to write. And that's how movies get it wrong in the most subtle way that translates into our fiction, which I have a really good video example of clicking on empty if you want to see it.
Sure. Play it
All
on.
right,
Bring it on.
here's my first movie. This is from the TV show The Punisher, and it is possibly the most egregious clicking on empty there could possibly be. So we have Frank Castle there. He's getting shot at, and we're tracking the number of bullets because, in a firefight, you can count how many bullets are shot at you. And here we get click, 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 5 clicks, and the slide is locked back to the rear. So this is why that won't work. I have a regular semi-automatic firearm here. You can see the slide is locked back to the rear as it would if I shot it till it was empty.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And you can see that the trigger is back
Yep. So there is it's
and
nothing.
I cannot pull the trigger. The writer just has to take care that, they know the firearm that they're doing or that they're using. And, if I did have a revolver,
Yep.
it'll click all day long because that's how revolvers do. So, because the action moves when the trigger is pulled. So, with a revolver, yeah, you can click on empty all day. But with any of the semi-automatics, you can't.
Wow. Well, let's move along with your pet peeves, your seven deadly sins. That was number one, was one, clicking on
That
empty.
that
What
was
else?
number one.
What are some other ones? You can go, you don't have to go through all if you want, or what are some other?
Well, basic anatomy for any kind of pistol, and this is this is a trap um, because different firearms have different features. Uh, you can look at the description of a firearm. Let's let's take the Glock, for example.
There we go.
Here you go. You've got a Glock, and if you read the description for Glock, it says it has a trigger safety. Well, most people associate that with a safety that you can put on and off. And yes, there's a trigger safety, but in the firearms community, it doesn't count. I'm going to throw up a graphic real quick for you.
Awesome.
So you have a manual safety that you can click on and off, and that's fine with with the firearms community. But you also have other kinds of safeties like this grip safety, which is a safety, but it doesn't count as far as the firearms community is concerned with putting a gun on and off safe. And then you've got the trigger safety, like on that Glock 19 right there, and it's right there on the trigger, but it doesn't count as a safety either. So anatomy is a big one, and you should be able to diagnose and read just the basic facts about what a firearm is and how it operates, or how that particular firearm operates. So you don't say he put the Glock on safe,
Right.
which is just one of the worst cardinal sins ever. So anatomy, clicking on empty. If we're going down the deadly
Yeah,
sins, you've got bullet effects. When you're hit by a bullet, you're not going to be picked up and thrown across a room,
that's right.
um, because bullets poke holes in you and they don't transfer all of the energy
Right.
to your body. So, you know, a zero point 0.5 ounce bullet is never going to lift a 100-pound person and throw them across the room. And I mean, that's just physics.
Yes.
Not only that, but in order for the bullet to exert that much force on a person, that same amount of force has to be applied to the shooter
Yes. So they would fall back, push
because of
back.
conservation of momentum. So they would get thrown across the room simply by pulling the trigger. So having your gunshot victim do any kind of acrobatics is not advised. Okay,
Very
so that's three of them. Um, Menacing's always a good one.
What's menacing?
So menacing would be me operating the gun in such a way as to make you think I really mean business.
Okay.
So
Uh,
if I'm in a crazy hostage scene interrogation thing going on here, and I'm holding my gun and I'm mad at Linda, and I decide, okay, well, I'm gonna prove that I'm mad at Linda by
uh,
doing that.
uh,
Well, if there were bullets in the gun, I would have just ejected a bullet. And if a bullet didn't eject, then there was no bullet in the gun in the first place. So operating the firearm in order to make a point is only going to make the character look dumb.
hmm
Now, there's a big thing in some movies, and it bleeds into fiction where the good guys or the bad guys decide to go hot, weapons off safe, and that's generally with rifles. Um, but in special forces, we were trained you're either on safe or you're off safe and actually shooting at somebody. And as soon as you're done shooting, you go back on safe because you have this big long rifle, and if you decide to let it hang on your equipment and you're doing other things, gear grows hands and fingers and it likes to try to pull that trigger for you. So if it isn't on safe, it's not a safe gun. And that's why professionals go on and off safe when they're shooting.
What is what does on safe mean and off?
It means the safety is engaged.
Okay.
You go off safe and the weapon is ready to fire. You would never patrol around with a weapon on fire.
Right.
And taking it into a chaotic environment where it could go off if you're not careful or you decide to sling the gun at any time is not recommended.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just one of my little pet peeves. Um, and I don't think you see it very often anymore, but it does creep in from time to time. And I only have one more deadly sin, and it isn't really a sin, it's just more of a pet peeve. And that's the gun jammed.
Right at the right moment, right when it's pointed at you, and the person are just about to get it.
You know,
And the gun jams.
if the if guns jammed as much in real life as they do in fiction, we would all still be using swords. Oh wait, I I've got one
Sorry.
more. I've got
Oh,
one more deadly sin.
that's okay. One
I'm
more.
sorry.
That's
It's
good.
eight deadly sins.
Okay.
It isn't as poetic, but um, two guns, two pistols. When a character is using two pistols,
Mm.
it's just horrible. It's just horrible. I mean, here you go. You've got
Uh,
Willis and Harvey Keitel and Antonio Banderas and Laura Croft and all these people that just love to use two guns at the same time. But the problem is that it's really not very good to use two guns at the same time. I've tried it because
mm,
I've done a lot of training with police and we'd fight each other with simunitions. And I thought, you know what? Today I'm going to go with two guns. I'm going to see what it's like. I have a lefty and a righty, and I what I found was I fought with one hand, and then I'd fight with the other hand. But then you run out of ammo, and I've got something to demonstrate that.
okay. I love it. Nice. Nice job.
It it's very difficult to load a gun with a gun in
With
your
the
other hand.
good.
So don't do that.
Just don't.
But as far as best practices go, always pick a common firearm.
Mm,
You know, you could pick the Glock 19 here and you could say, "Oh, it's a Glock." And you never really have to explain that very much because everybody knows what a Glock is. You know, you could say, "Oh, he's got his Colt Peacemaker." Okay, yeah, Colt Peacemaker, single action cowboy gun, got it. Or you could say, "He pulled out his harmonica gun."
mm.
Which one are you going to look up? Which one are you going to just glaze over and continue with the story? And which is going to make a person stop and go, "What is that?"
Right.
And that's exactly what you don't want, especially in a tense scene.
Mhm.
So I would stay away from the oddballs, keep it common, keep it simple, and you will take out 99% of your problems. And then the other thing to do is keep your interactions with the firearm simple. You know, keep it the most basic that you can. Load, unload, aim, fire, holster, safe, if it's equipped with a safe. Uh, aim, I think I said aim already. But if you just keep it to those simple interactions,
Mhm.
you're not going to run into anybody's pet peeves or biases or training ideas.
I had two other exam two things a couple things I wanted to pull out from your book that I thought were great ideas, best practices. Uh, and I think it relates all to keeping it simple, but making sure you understand a level above kind of what you're writing on paper. And I think you said one was choreograph your scene. So write it on paper, write it, draw a diagram so that, you don't inadvertently, I guess, have people, good guys shooting at each other from blind corners or something, right? So that's a great idea. And I do that and I do a lot of firearm scenes, but other scenes, it's always a good idea to diagram. And so that was great. You already talked about the terminology, and we just did a little more. And, don't get only, write down one level from what you know, what you've researched. May not bring it all out, but it keeps it all aligned. So very good
So
advice. Very great.
that right there is uh, is a model of uh, a space gun used in one of Scott Sigler's books. I
The one
talk
on the,
about it.
I saw, I got it. I was just looking at it, wondering if that was it. There it is.
That was it. A prop maker actually built the thing,
Wow.
and I only bring it up because I have a whole manual of arms, how to load,
Mm.
inspect, operate that particular space firearm. I developed the whole thing. Scott didn't use any of it. He has it, but like you say, write a level down from what you know, and then you can always pull it out if you need to have that extra detail, but most of the time you're not going to need it.
But it keeps everything you do consistent.
Exactly.
Mhm.
There are some really, really good movies out there, though, and they're getting better. Uh, another movie that is just tremendous is a movie called Way of the Gun.
Mm.
It's got Benicio del Toro in it, and the firearms depictions in that movie are just amazing, amazing firearms depictions.
Excellent.
Um, in one particular scene, I don't have it downloaded, I should have, but there's a sniper up on the hill, and you hear the round come whizzing in. One of the characters gets shot or gets hit, falls over, and then you hear the report of the round from up the hill. And that's that's reality right there.
Wow.
Of course, Heat.
Okay.
The shootout in Heat was just an incredibly well choreographed and executed movie scene.
Okay. All right. Um, well, that's all I have on my topics to talk about today,
All
Chris.
right.
I just want to remind readers, first of all, what we've talked about today has been in the context of writers, but anybody who's watched people who read and watch movies probably aren't going to read or watch a gunfight again in the same way. And apologies from us if we messed it up for you. That's what we do here on From Fact to Fiction. If you are a writer, pick up Trigger Guard. It's wonderful. And don't forget in September, Chris's book, Schrodinger's Glass, and we will let you all know about it before it comes out. And I just want to say thank you again for coming, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Thank
me,
you.
Linda. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And we'll see everyone next time on From Fact to Fiction.